And we are back with part 2 of this week's reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, Tree of Life Version, TLV. And we are going to complete the last section of chapter 6 of the book of Zechariah. This week we're doing Zechariah and Malachi and completing the section known as the Nevi'im, or the prophets. Crowns for Joshua. And the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Take from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobijah, and Jedediah, who have come from Babylon, and go the same day. Go to the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. Take silver and gold, make crowns, and set on the head of Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the Kohen Gadol. Then speak to him, saying, Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, Behold, a man whose name is the branch will branch out from his place and build the temple of Adonai. He will build the temple of Adonai. He will bear splendor and sit and rule on the throne. Thus he will be a Kohen on his throne, so a council of shalom will be between them both. The crowns will be in the temple of Adonai, a memorial to Helam, Tobijah, and Jedediah, and to Chen, son of Zephaniah. Those who are far off will come and build the temple of Adonai. Then you will know that Adonai Sabaoth has sent me to you. It will come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of Adonai your God. Okay, so we're going to go on to chapter 7, Justice and Chesed. Chesed is mercy and kindness, and it is spelled Chesed. In the 4th year of King Darius, the word of Adonai came to Zechariah on the 4th day of the 9th month in Kislev. Now Bethel was Sarazar and Regem-melech together with his men to seek the favor of Adonai and to speak to the Kohanim of the house of Adonai Sabaoth and to the prophet, saying, Should I mourn and consecrate myself in the 5th month as I have done for so many years? Now Kislev, we're looking at Kislev starting again this year, 2020, is November 17th through it will be in the Feast of Dedication, or Hanukkah, because it's going to run to December 15th. Tevet is the month that follows Kislev, which will be on December 16th. So just to give you a little idea of when we're talking about the month of Kislev here, where that fits as we're looking at the present day. Then the word of Adonai Sabaoth came to me, saying, Speak to all the people of the land and to the Kohanim, saying, When you fasted and mourned in the 5th and in the 7th month for the past 70 years, did you really fast for me? When you eat and drink, are you not eating and drinking for yourself? Are not these the words that Adonai proclaimed through the former prophets when Jerusalem with its surrounding cities were inhabited and prosperous, when the Negev and the lowland were inhabited? Again, the word of Adonai came to Zechariah, saying, Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, administer true judgment and practice mercy and compassion each to his brother. Do not oppress the widow or the orphan, the outsider or the poor. Furthermore, do not let any of you devise evil against one another in your hearts. But they refused to pay attention. They stubbornly turned their backs and stopped their ears from hearing. Indeed, they made their hearts as hard as flint, preventing them from hearing the Torah or the words that Adonai Sabaoth sent by his Ruach through the former prophets. Consequently, great wrath came from Adonai Sabaoth. It came about that just as he called, and they did not listen, so they would call, and I would not listen, says Adonai Sabaoth. I scattered them with a whirlwind among all the nations they have not known. Thus the land was left so desolate behind them that no one passed through or returned, for they made the pleasant land desolate. Chapter 8, Zealous for Zion. Then the word of Adonai Sabaoth came, saying, Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, I am exceedingly zealous for Zion. I am burning with jealousy for her. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Adonai Sabaoth will be called the holy mountain. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, once again old men and old women will sit in the trees of Jerusalem, each with his staff in his hand because of his age. The streets of the city will be full of boys and girls playing in its streets. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, it may seem difficult in the eyes of the remnant of this people in those days, but it also, will it also be difficult in my eyes? It is a declaration of Adonai Sabaoth. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, behold, I will save my people from the land of the east and from the land of the west. I will bring them back, and they will live in the midst of Jerusalem. They will be my people, and I will be their God in truth and righteousness. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, let your hands be strong, you who hear these words spoken by the prophets, who were there the day the foundation of the house of Adonai was laid, so that the temple may be rebuilt. Before those days, there were no wages for man or animal, nor were there any shalom from adversity for those who came or went, because I set every one against his neighbor. But now I will not treat the remnant of this people as in the former days. It is a declaration of Adonai Sabaoth. For there will be a sowing of shalom. The vine will yield its fruit, the ground will produce its increase, and the heavens will give their due. I will cause the remnant of this people to inherit all these things. It will happen that just as you were a curse among the nations, house of Judah and house of Israel, so will I save you, and you will be a blessing. Fear not, let your hands be strong. For thus says Adonai Sabaoth, just as I determined to harm you when your fathers provoked me to anger, says Adonai Sabaoth, and I did not relent, so I have again determined in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Fear not. These are the things that you are to do: speak the truth to one another, administer the judgment of truth and shalom in your gates. Do not let any of you devise evil in your hearts against your neighbor, and do not love false oaths, for I hate all these things. It is a declaration of Adonai. Again the word of Adonai Sabaoth came, saying, thus says Adonai Sabaoth, the fast of the fourth, the fast of the fifth, the fast of the seventh, and the fast of the 10th month will become joy, gladness, and cheerful Moedim. Therefore love truth and shalom. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, peoples and the inhabitants of many cities will again come. The inhabitants of one city will go to another, saying, let us go to the entreat of the favor of Adonai and to seek Adonai Sabaoth. I also am going. Indeed, many peoples and powerful nations will come to seek Adonai Sabaoth in Jerusalem and to entreat the favor of Adonai. Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, in those days it will come to pass that 10 men from every language of the nations will grasp the corner of the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. And we know who that is. That is Yeshua, because we're going to read in the Brit Kadashai how everyone wanted to touch the the hem of his garment. The lady with the issue of blood, for example. One of the footnotes is Hebrews 8, verse 10. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, says Adonai, I will put my Torah into their mind, and upon their hearts I will write it. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Chapter 9, Judgment on Israel's Enemies. The burden of the word of Adonai is against the land of Hadrach, and will rest upon Damascus. For the eyes of men, and all the tribes of Israel, and toward Adonai, and also upon Hamath, bordering it, and upon Tyre and Sidon. Though they are very shrewd, Tyre built herself a fortress, and heaped up silver like dust, and fine gold like dirt in the streets. Behold, the Lord will impoverish her and destroy her power on the sea, while she will be devoured by fire. Ashkelon will see it in fear. Gaza will writhe in pain, as will Ekron, because her hope will dry up. The king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will be uninhabited. A mongrel people will live in Ashdod, and I will cut off the Philistine's pride. I will remove the blood from his mouth, forbidden food from between his teeth. Whoever is left will be a remnant for our God. He will be like a leader in Judah, and Ekron will be like a Jebusite. But I will camp around my house against marauding forces. No oppressor will overrun them again, for now I watch with my own eyes. Zion's coming king. Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. A righteous one bringing salvation. He is lowly, riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This is when Yeshua came the first time. This was already prophesied in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, in Zechariah. Here it is. And he did exactly that. So Yeshua is all throughout the Bible. So it's 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 amazing as we're reading these prophets how the prophets prophesied of his first and second coming. I will banish chariots from Ephraim and horses from Jerusalem, and the war bow will be broken. He will speak shalom to the nations. He will rule. His rule will extend from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth. As for you also, by the blood of your covenant, I will release your prisoners from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Today I declare that I will restore twice as much to you. I will bend Judah as my bow and fill it with Ephraim. I will rouse your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece. I will wield you like a warrior's sword. Then Adonai will be seen over them as his arrow flashes like lightning. Adonai Elohim will blow the shofar and march in whirlwinds of the south. Adonai Sabaoth will defend them. They will consume and conquer with sling stones. They will drink and roar us with wine and be filled like a bowl, like the corners of the altar. Adonai their God will save them on that day as the flock of his people. They will be like gems of a crown, sparkling over his land. How good and beautiful it will be. Grain will be grain will make the young men thrive, and new wine the virgin women. And footnotes, Matthew 21 verse 5 says, say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king is coming to you, humble and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. So that coincides with Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. And John chapter 12, verse 15 says, fear not, daughter of Zion. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt. Chapter 10, Good Shepherd cares for Judah. Ask Adonai for rain in spring. Adonai makes the storm clouds and will give rain showers and plants of the field to everyone. The idols utter deceit, and diviners see lies. They relate false dreams and comfort in vain. Therefore the people wander like sheep, afflicted because there is no shepherd. My anger burns against the shepherds, and I will punish the leaders. Adonai Sabaoth cares for his flock, the house of Judah. He will make them his valiant steed in battle. From Judah will come the cornerstone, and we know the cornerstone is Yeshua, and he came from Judah. From him the tent peg, and from him the battle bow, and from him every leader together. They will be like mighty men treading down muddy streets in war. They will fight because Adonai is with them, and will put horsemen to shame. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back, for I have compassion on them. They will be as though I had never spurned them, for I am Adonai their God, and I will answer them. The Ephraimites will be like a warrior, their hearts will be glad as with wine. Their children will see and be glad, their hearts will rejoice in Adonai. I will signal for them and gather them. Surely I will redeem them, and they will be as numerous as before, though I scatter them among the peoples. They will remember me in distant places. They and their children will survive and return. I will restore from the land of Egypt, and gather them from Assyria. I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon, till there is no room for them. He will cross the turbulent sea and calm its raging waves. All the depths of the Nile will dry up. the pride of Assyria brought down, the scepter of Egypt removed. So I will strengthen them in Adonai, and they will walk in his name. It is a declaration of Adonai. And chapter 11, devastation of surrounding lands. Open your gates, Lebanon. Fire will devour your cedars. Wail, cypress trees, for the cedar has fallen. Those majestic ones are devastated. Wail, oaks of Bashan, for the thick forest is cut down. Listen to the wailing of the shepherds, for their glory is destroyed. Listen to the roaring of the young lions, for Jordan's thickets are ruined. Two staffs. Thus says Adonai, my God, shepherd the flock marked for slaughter. Their buyers slay them and go unpunished. Those who sell them, blessed be Adonai, for I am rich. Their own shepherds do not spare them. I will no longer have compassion on the inhabitants of the land. It is a declaration of Adonai. Behold, I will hand everyone over to his neighbor and his king. They will devastate the land, and I will not deliver them from their hand. So I pastured the flock for the slaughter, especially the afflicted of the flock. Then I took two staffs. One I called favor, and the other I called union, and I pastured the flock. Next I disposed of the three shepherds in 1 month, for my soul was impatient with them, and their soul also detested me. Then I said, I will not shepherd you. Let the dying die, let the perishing perish, and let those who are left eat one another's flesh. So I took my staff called favor and broke it to pieces in order to break my covenant that I made with all people. It was broken on that day. The afflicted of the flock that were watching me knew that this was the word of Adonai. Then I said to them, if it seems good to you, pay me my wages, but if not, don't bother. So they weighed out my wages, 30 pieces of silver. So then Adonai said to me, throw it to the potter, that exorbitant price at which they valued me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of Adonai to the potter. Well, now this is a type and shadow of Yeshua, because he was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. And when Judas threw it back at the priest, they actually would not receive it, but he threw it and ran off, um, basically because he knew what he did and that he really betrayed the Lord. And what they did is they bought a plot, the potter's field. Uh, then I broke my second staff called union in order to break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. Again Adonai said to me once more, take up the equipment of a foolish shepherd, for behold, I am going to raise up a shepherd in the land who will not care for the dying, seek out the young, or heal the injured, or nourish the healthy. Instead, he will eat the meat of the choice sheep, even tearing off their hoofs. Woe to the worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May a sword fell his arm and his right eye. May his arm be all withered and his right eye totally blinded. Now, when we think of shepherds, we think of people that are shepherding and, you know, shepherding the sheep and teaching the sheep. And if they're doing wrong and taking advantage of the flock, and yes, there have been many churches that has happened in. Those that are leading, that are shepherd, it's supposed to be shepherding, will be held accountable for these things. Because God does not, God sees everything, so he knows what they're doing. Future prophecy coming here. Jerusalem, a cup of reeling, chapter 12. The burden of the word of Adonai concerning Israel. A declaration of Adonai, who stretched out the heavens, laid the foundations of the earth, and formed the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of reeling to all the surrounding peoples, when they besiege Jerusalem as well as Judah. Moreover, in that day I will make Jerusalem a massive stone for all people. All who try to lift it will be cut to pieces. Now, we thought we were having that prophecy fulfilled because before, like maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, because everybody, well, actually, just even recently, when we think about the ones that are against the peace treaties and things like that. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on constantly. But you know what is happening, the peace that is being brought is actually it's favored, again, when we go back to I will curse them that curse you, I will bless them that bless you. So if there are nations that mean harm, God knows that. God watches that, and God will deal with it. Absolutely. Nevertheless, all the nations of the earth will be gathered together against her. So that is future prophecy. In that day, it is a declaration of Adonai. I will strike every horse with confusion and its rider with madness. I will keep my eyes on the house of Judah, but will blind every horse of the peoples. Then the leaders of Judah will say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are my strength through Adonai Sabaoth, their God. In that day I will make the leaders of Judah like a fire pot in a wood pile, like a burning torch among sheaves. They will devour on the right and on the left other surrounding peoples. Yet Jerusalem will remain in her place in Jerusalem. Adonai also will save the tents of Judah first, so that the honor of the house of David and the honor of the inhabitants of Jerusalem will not exceed that of Judah. In that day Adonai will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the weakest among them that day will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of Adonai before them. It will happen in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Mourning the pierced one, and this is also future. This is a whole futuristic prophecy here in chapter 12. Then I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication when they will look towards me whom they pierced. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and grieve bitterly for him as one grieves for a firstborn. In that day there will be a great mourning in Jerusalem, mourning like Hadad Rimmon in the valley of Megiddo. The land will mourn clan by clan, the clan of the house of David by itself and their wives by themselves, and the clan of the house of Nathan by itself and their wives by themselves, the clan of the house of Levi by itself and their wives by themselves, the clans of the Shimeites by themselves and their wives by themselves. Each of the remaining clans will mourn by itself and their wives by themselves. And I think I'm going to pause this here and come back with the remaining two chapters.